That's the quote.
Yeah, he's basically asserting that it's if a woman is walking in a bad neighborhood or is wearing a short skirt or whatever, it's that rhetoric, that there is some responsibility or blame there. That's the idea there.
So I'm
It's
gonna.
Or that
I'm
she
Tara.
gonna.
doesn't have
I've got.
weapons to protect herself or something along
One
those lines, or means to
one
protect
thing that
herself.
he mentions on
Tara.
Patrick Betts David's podcast is that basically comes down to the woman. If she wants to go out at night on a dangerous road, she shouldn't really expect the guy to essentially protect them. So that's essentially what he said, and it's kind of true. So if, for example, your wife or your girlfriend wants to go out and potentially put themselves in danger at midnight or at 1 a.m., it's essentially just down to them. It shouldn't come down to the man protecting them. That's what he basically mentions.
I mean, that's just common sense, right? And you're not supposed to state common sense these days. I'm not saying no one's saying it's okay that it happens, but I mean, it happens. You have to protect yourself. Don't put yourself in danger.
I never really understood
Yeah, so
stuff like
Tara,
this quote so much.
that was out of a 1 hour long podcast, that quote, and there was a lot more context behind that. And this is the biggest issue, is that that's the part that he started to tone down and just be careful of how he positions things, because he's realized that things have been taken out of context.
So I do want to just play this. Someone sent it to me. So there's someone that interviewed Andrew that hasn't released. I think hasn't released the interview yet, or just tweeted parts of it now. Now, I know there's some people that believe that it's all part of a conspiracy to get him arrested, so I think this video would relate to that audience, so I'll read it out. I'm just going to play it out. Tell me if you can hear it, guys. If you can't, just interrupt.
What people don't understand is why influence is so important. This is why I'm saying here and adamantly stating that they're going to try and kill me if they're not already thinking about it already, because I know how influential I am. And influence is everything. The reason there is a war right now in regions of Ukraine is so that somebody gets to be in charge and influence the population. He gets to influence how they think. He gets to influence the language they speak, influence the currency they use. Influence. There are machines of war and destruction in the fields of Ukraine right now, and thousands of men a day dying for influence. The media machine, the only reason they pump it into every airport and put it all over the TV and convince you to believe in it is so they can influence you. The only reason you go to school is so the teacher can influence your mind. The reason the algorithms of social media platforms decide to show you the videos they show you is to influence you. People say, oh, you had a big following, but that's not enough reason to kill you. Oh, you mean I could influence the world? That's not enough reason to kill me. All they fucking want to do is influence people. It's the number one most important thing on the planet. Influence is all this is ever.
So I just want to. The only reason I'm playing this is just to relate to that audience. The one thing to mention before I go to Patrick Bet David, who's on stage, is to say that criminals will also create such a narrative, because it makes sense, because if they know they've done something wrong and they're worried about authorities, they'll start creating such a narrative, because then it will just serve them, will work to their advantage later on. I'm not implying anything. I have no idea. I don't know much about Andrew, but I will go to Patrick. Patrick, how are you? Good to have you, man.
How are you? It's great to be on.
Pleasure is ours. What are your thoughts after seeing this? You've interviewed Andrew. Your interview is one of the ones that was mentioned the most. I'd love your take on this news.
Yeah, obviously, there's two ways we have to look at something like this. As a parent who's got 4 kids, when the school calls you and tells you your kid's done something wrong, the initial reaction is always to say, my son would never do such a thing. He's an angel. He's this, he's that. And then you realize, yeah, your son did it, right? So we have to kind of understand that we all have some biases. Some of you guys may be on here because you like him and what he says. Some may not like him. Some may be glad. I'm getting a lot of messages of people saying, look what happened to your boy. You were so wrong. I can't believe you gave this guy a platform and interviewed him and said good things about him, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I'm logical enough to know that we are all sinners and we all can make mistakes, some bigger than others. And I'm not sitting here saying he did not make the mistake. So let's put that as before I preface anything else with other things. What I will say is the following. Look, we have to be, you got to be naive if you think large establishment organizations like it when we are very loud. They don't. They don't like it when we're opinionated. They don't like it when we call out their bullshit. They don't like it when anybody pushes them around. And Andrew Tate, as popular as he's become over the last 6 months, whatever the timeline is, he's going after everybody's number one hero on the woke side. He's going after, Greta Thunberg yesterday. It's so funny that a day after that happens, they rate him. So a bit of the timing is off for me, where my natural paranoid instincts kind of sits there and says, really, a day after that happens, you target him. Interesting. Okay, that's fair. I mean, I can sit here and be 50-50 skeptical on both sides on what's going on. Yet at the same time, we've known about Epstein for how many years? And I've not seen a single person. You had the list of people that went and visited his island. Who's gotten arrested so far? Who's gotten raided so far? So if there's one thing we are learning, and I like what I want to say your co-host is Tara. Forgive me, Tara, if I'm not saying the correct name.
That's right.
Yeah, you
Thank you.
said, yeah, thank you. No, you said something very important. You're nervous about this because as a woman, you understand the fear of what happens when a man takes advantage of a woman. Not that it's happened to you, but it's a natural fear of a woman. I got my 6-year-old daughter sitting to me right to my right, and we're driving together. She's listening to this. Of course, I'm going to be telling her what things she shouldn't be doing. And you said everything's about innocent until proven guilty. If there's one thing we've learned since 2016, with what the media and large establishments have been doing, everybody is jumping to conclusion immediately. We want everybody to be guilty. We don't know that yet, but the timing's a bit off. I'm a little bit naturally paranoid, and we're going to see what's going to come out over the next few days here.
What's your
I
sense
couldn't
of
agree.
Andrew having? Sorry, go ahead,
Sorry.
Tara.
I was just going to say I couldn't agree more. And that's initially my first thought is, what are the odds he has a spat with Greta yesterday, and then today he's being arrested. But from the information being relayed, it sounds like this has been an ongoing, potential ongoing situation or investigation. So I'm not even sure how true that is. But like you, Patrick, I'm extremely paranoid. He's been canceled before. So have doctors who have spoken out against COVID. So, I mean, let's just be real here. Exactly like what you just said, they do not want dissenting voices gaining traction and gaining a crowd of people who will follow what they're saying.
I do want to remind everyone that this did go down in Romania, which
Your
is
mic, Catherine, I'm going to interrupt you. Your mic is really, really bad. So while you fix your mic, Catherine, I'll let you jump in right after. Patrick, what's your sense of Andrew? You've spent time with him. I'm meant to interview him in a week or so I won't get the opportunity to know the person behind the camera when the camera is not rolling. What's your sense?
It's funny. I judge people if I like them off camera more than if I like them while we're doing the shoot or the interview. I like them 10 times more off camera than I like them on camera. He seemed like a human. He seemed like a funny guy. He seemed like a regular person like you and I, who you would have a lot of fun with if you played Monopoly with him, if you played chess with him, if you played a sports game with him. He seemed like a guy that is one of the guys. He's sarcastic, witty, sense of humor. His brother was there. Had a chance to, I've only hung out with them based on the 5-hour interview you saw, and another, I would say 90 minutes. So 6.5 hours of total. I've never gone to Romania. We've never had any kind of time outside of that 6.5 hours together. I had to come back to the States. But I liked him the way he is. Here's one thing I will tell you. Years ago, when I was going to a church, I was an atheist for 25 years of my life. And as an atheist, I'm growing up in Iran, and I'm seeing people getting bombed on, and I'm skeptical about God. How does God exist if people are dying, and he's doing nothing about it? So as a kid, I would get kicked out of Bible school all the time. And then one day, I'm going to this Bible study in Pasadena, and this guy's trying to convert me. So I'm sitting down with him, and I'm like, listen, man, stop with all your BS. I've seen so many pastors doing this. I've seen so many pastors doing that. And he says, listen, if you're going to have a relationship with the man upstairs, if it's going to be horizontal, you will forever be disappointed. But if it's vertical, you're never going to be disappointed. What does that mean? You and I, everybody on this call, especially the ones that think they walk on water, if your shit came out and everybody knew about it, I guarantee you would be heartbroken if your dark secrets were publicized. Now, I'm not, listen, there's levels to the game. I'm not sitting here saying you've done anything at the levels that he's being accused of, but we will always be disappointed if we put on people on the pedestal that they walk on water. None of us do. I don't like to be called that, I make the decisions the right 100% of the time, because that's way too much pressure for anybody. So we have to understand that this could be true. And if it is true, if you're going to be emotional about it, you set a standard of God as Andrew. And Andrew's not God. Andrew's a regular guy like everybody else that has temptations, that has flaws, that has a temper, that is frustrated. The only difference with him is this: he is willing to say what's on his mind against some of the most powerful people in the world. And we have to realize there is a lot of risk to that. Just recently, we were doing an event around generational wealth. And one of the things that we looked at was the Medici family, who's the only family that's been able to keep the wealth in their family for 7 generations. One of the rules they followed, which was very interesting, one of the rules they followed, and Rothschild family also followed, these two families, one of the rules they followed that the Vanderbilts didn't follow, that some other families didn't follow. Vanderbilt's wealth only lasted 2 generations. Medici is 7. I think Roths is on their 4th or 5th generation. Here's one of the rules the Medicis and Rothschilds followed. Don't be too public. Don't be in people's faces. Be very low key. Don't call out the powerful people publicly. Don't do it. Why would they say such a thing? Because when you do, there's always people more powerful than you that will have the most creative ways to target you and take you down. And quite frankly, Tate took that risk. And, my kids and I were just in Aspen a couple of days ago, and I told my son, I said, there's 2 things you are never going to be more powerful than. Number 1, the mountain. Respect the mountain, because when you fall, you can hurt yourself. Number 2, ocean.
Is it me or did Patrick drop out?
It's not you.
No, we lost him.
I just want to jump in and
okay.
build on a little bit of what Patrick is saying. I'm 21. I'm a young guy. I've known Andrew since I was I think 17. A lot of the like man up kind of attitude that he puts forward online, he's the same in person as well on that side as well. He's been a big figure in my life to be a better person, to be honest. And the reason I'm bringing this up is this is a lot of people are like, how is he in real life versus online and stuff like that. A lot of it is exaggerated, obviously. A lot of it is to bring in the views and satisfy the algorithm. But the key message, it's there in real life. It's there online. It's very much a mission. What Patrick was saying about it, just kind of making himself public and doing things that are quite dangerous is it's inspired a lot of people to do the same. There's a lot of things, regardless of which side of any argument you're on, that we're extremely fucked up, and it's not just Andrew. It's a lot of other people like him that have kind of gone out on the line, done risky things, spoken out when perhaps it was scary. That's encouraging others to do the same, and we're all kind of on the same side when we talk about things like innocent until proven guilty. What about the whole thing of the people who just kind of stand by and watch sins happen are as bad as the sinners? I'm not saying I agree with statements like that, but it's guys that are not scared to speak out and speak their mind and challenge the status quo that are kind of inspiring people of all ages, including the age bracket that I'm in, to stand up to things that aren't so good. And I think that's really, really important to highlight at a time like this. We're all focusing on.
Can I ask you guys something that Patrick and Sammy, do you believe that the Romanian authorities are part of a conspiracy theory by the media, by the woke left, etc., to take Andrew Tate down? Do you really think he's that important? Because someone said earlier on that he really doesn't say much that's that interesting and that significant. He wasn't a major speaker, anti-vaccine speaker, until the last few months, as far as I understand, and most of what he talks about is empowering guys. This, that. He's not a particularly political figure, I don't think. So, genuine question.
In particular, just to tag on to Sam's question, because in particular, Romania is a known, like the things that he's saying, that Andrew Tate is saying to Romanians, most of them are going to be sort of in agreement. I mean, their philosophy in general in Eastern Europe is very aligned with what Andrew Tate is saying. Probably part of why he lives there and probably enjoys living there is that it's kind of more in within his worldview. So why are people sort of connecting his arrest with that versus maybe being more showy with his car, with his wealth, and things like that?
One thing that
There's a
he's
lot of
Your
reasons to
mic.
move to Romania beyond just those things, and he's spoken about them before. I think one big one, for example, is it's harder to guarantee safety in a place like London, where he used to live, where I used to live, than in a place like Romania when you've got the right connections, or in a place like Dubai where you don't even need the connections and you've just got the safety anyway because people obey the law. There's a lot more than
That's very strange from someone who lives in Europe. Like Eastern Europe is known to be far less safe than
Yeah,
Western
but
Europe.
that's not what I said. What I said specifically
We,
was when you know the right people, right? Like if you, and I'm not saying that this is the case, although I think it's certainly likely that if you know the right people in a place like Romania, people just aren't going to mess with you, right? That's fair to say. We can agree on that.
well, I mean,
Yeah, and I'm not saying
if you
it's
talk about
just one.
underground and mafia and people like that, then possibly. But then you're just as you get involved in that kind of world, and ultimately it catches up with you. I mean, it's interesting to hear all the I appreciate it's great as always. Mario brings people in from both sides of the debate, and it's interesting to hear everybody sort of talking about Andrew Tate and all his positivity and everything. But it's strange that we're taking things and trying to sort of say, well, he lives in Romania because it's safe. If the guy is really worth $350 million, he can have private security in any country in the world. So it's like, how much of this stuff
Okay,
can we really believe in? How much is
I'll
it just
go.
trying
I'll,
to find an
I'll
excuse?
go. Yes, I'll go. Patrick, I know you were speaking earlier. Is the mic working now?
It should. What's the last thing you
Yes,
heard me say?
perfect.
you said the last thing you said was ocean.
What was the last thing I said?
Okay, so the context of it was the two things you tell your kids, to be like concerned about,
Oh
right? Which is the
yes,
mountain and
yes.
the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah, so the two things that I tell my kids all the time is, listen, we were at Aspen a couple days ago. My son's going down on one of the slopes, and he wasn't slowing down. I said, look, two things you got to respect. One is the mountain; it's always going to be more powerful than you got to respect. And number two is the ocean. One wave can destroy you. The moment Andrew Tate starts calling out establishments more powerful than him, and he's doing it over and over and over again, you have to realize that is a risk. I did a course. I was doing a course a couple weeks ago on generational wealth, and we're doing estate planning. I'm going through the process myself. So we studied families that did the best job of estate planning, where the wealth went down the most generations. Vanderbilt screwed up. Their wealth only lasted 2 generations. That's why Anderson Cooper never got money from his mom, and there was no trust fund baby. But the Medici family and the Rothschild family had one rule, and it's a very powerful rule that Tate's broken, and a lot of people have broken. Here's what the rule was: in the Rothschild and the Medici family, whose wealth was generationally transferred for 7 generations, 1517, they said, don't be loud, don't call out powerful institutions, stay low key, don't say anything, create your power, but have your power behind closed doors, not publicly. Tate's done the complete opposite. There's a massive risk when you do that. And he knew when he was doing it that there's a risk behind it. Whether it was first being blocked from Instagram and Twitter until Elon brought him back, whether it's YouTube shutting him down and him going to Rumble, those things, when you do that, highly risky. We know the last handful of people that have done that the last 6 years. One was a president, what everything in the economy was doing good until he got ousted. The other one was him. I can give you 10 other names. You know the names of these folks. It's the biggest risk one will take is when you start calling out establishment. And that's exactly what Tate's been doing the last 6-12 months.
So just to jump in real quick, it looks like Romanian prosecutors are now saying that the group led by Andrew Tate used physical violence and mental coercion, intimidation, constant surveillance, control, and invoking of alleged debts to force women to work as cam girls. So that seems to be one of the most major reasons why.
pretty serious allegations. Nick, if you can send that to me, so I'll add it to the thread. But I'll go. Patrick, you mentioned about Andrew's personality when you spent 6 hours with him and you did the interview. And we had the first time I think we met is during the Sam Bankman-Fried FTX collapse, and that's when Elon came into the space. And it was a very similar discussion. Sam was seen as like the god of crypto, extremely nice guy. Everyone loved him. Kevin O'Leary to this day is supporting him. How could Andrew be in that same category? Because he's got a great personality in many people's eyes, especially behind, when the camera's not rolling. He's got a massive fan base. But does that mean he's not capable of doing the things that are being alleged at the moment? And again, just to be clear, he's innocent until proven guilty. But do you think it's a similar story to Sam? Like his personality just doesn't give you the sense that he would do such a thing?
No, it's actually the opposite. I think his personality gives me a feel that he's willing to push the envelope and go to levels that the average person is not willing to go to. I get the idea that Tate is very good with his words, maybe the best in the world today at telling stories and persuading. He knows how to deliver his message probably better than anybody else in the world today. And the way we can quantify that is by the level of followership he's had the last 6 to 12 months. Nobody else has been able to do that. He's in a league of his own in that area. So is he capable of doing something like that? Sure he is. Is he at the Sam Bankman-Fried side? No, I think that's a complete different comparison, because look at it from this standpoint as well. Who defends who? The whole saying, the enemy of an enemy is a friend. The friend of an enemy is an enemy, right? So who supported Sam Bankman-Fried? Whoever did, what did they represent? Is that what you represent? Well, if that's what you represent, well, then that's who's defending him. Then who didn't support what Tate talks about? Is that who you support? So you got to be very careful on why the establishment is so careful with the dates on when they come out and arrest Friedman. And he says, well, I only have $100,000. Oh, all of a sudden he puts up $250 million of bail. Yeah, I guess you just go to the bank and cut a check. And how did that happen? None of us know about the story of how that $250 million came out after he told the story to the New York. So there's a lot of contradiction in that area. And we know who doesn't like Tate. So again, is he capable of doing what he's doing? I don't know. I've never hung out with him to know whether that could happen or not. Meaning, whatever he's being, people are claiming that he did in Romania. All of that could be true, but it also could be false. And the timing's been extremely strange to me. By the way, in smaller countries like Romania, you also have to realize it's a lot easier to make a phone call to the leaders of a government of Romania that's not known as the most, proper way of running a government. When it's more corrupt, you can also have another government calling them and saying, hey, we can help you in this area. So again, I'm not trying to speculate anything. All I'm saying is governments are afraid of bigger governments. So if somebody called them and said, you better do this or else, they may have caved. We don't know that.
I do want to add, having a team in Romania for one of my companies, having spent a lot of time there, corruption is a very serious problem in Romania. So it is something worth noting. But so if we go to other stories, Patrick, before we go to Tom, how does it work? Like I'm a bit more naive. Like when I hear those stories, I'm like, nah, come on, it can't be true. But then I've been proven wrong a few times before. I'm not saying in Tate's case, but in general, if that was a story that people that want to silence Tate, and a lot of people seem to be, to believe this theory, that people that want to silence Tate are behind this. Is evidence fabricated? Do they need to be evidence? How does it work in countries that are corrupt? Because you've given examples, you probably have a better understanding about this.
Look, I'll go from the lowest level to the highest level. I don't know if you guys have ever partied in Mexico. I went to Mexico and I partied a lot when I was 18, 20, 25 years old, 23 years old. I can't tell you how many times cops would come up to us and they would arrest 5 guys and they would say, listen, guys, if you don't give me all the cash you got, I'm going to put this cocaine in your car and say that you did this. By the way, if I tell you that's happened 3 times, that's a small number, okay? There's a Revolution Avenue in Mexico, Tijuana. If you went there, it was very easy targets to find people that didn't speak Spanish and play this with them. So what would we do? guys, we definitely don't want to get arrested here, and we're going to be staged. Give them the $500, give them $1,000, and we give all our money. They will let us go. We go across the board. Okay, so that's at the lowest level. At the highest level, you know, when the average person who's been following the media for the last 7 years, and you sit there and one moment you're seeing Guardian just a couple of years ago. We're not talking about a long time ago. Guardian, New York Times, WAPO, Reuters, saying the following things. I'll just read it to you. This is just a couple of years ago. Welcome to Ukraine, the most corrupt nation in Europe. What do they say now in the last 2 months? The fight for Ukraine is a fight for liberal ideas. Reuters, Ukraine's neo-Nazi problem. This is just a few years ago. Today, Reuters, for foreign fighters, Ukraine offers purpose, camaraderie, and a cause. Vox, just a couple years ago, a Ukrainian comedian turned president is embroiled in Trump's impeachment mess. CNN today, Ukrainians are giving 2 lessons in democracy that Americans have forgotten. You know how many newspapers we can go back and read 4, 5, 6 years ago, reading what they were saying about Ukraine? So we went all of a sudden, this is the more corrupt nation, to now this is the most noble nation, and he is now Churchill. I'm 50-50. I'm not the one that's sitting saying Putin is a hero. Definitely that's not what we're saying, because we know what he's driven by. But to all of a sudden assume this guy's a hero, it's naive. So if countries that size can be bought, a country the size of Romania can as well. Having said that, again, let me say this, and before I wrap this up, I am not sitting here telling you that all of this is BS. This could still be true. Okay, we can't, like, if our parents have let us down and you never thought your father was going to make a mistake and he did, and your husband, your mom and dad got a divorce, or if your mom's let you down, if we've let our parents down, if we've let our spouses down, if we've let our bosses down, what makes us think another guy is not accidentally going to let another person down because of temptation of wanting to make more money? So we have to have enough reason and logic to know that both are possible, yet not emotionally jump in and say, oh, the guy must be guilty.
I appreciate it, Patrick. Thanks a lot for coming by, man. You're welcome on the panel anytime, and I appreciate you sharing your thoughts. I know you're on the way to drop off your kids somewhere. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Before we go to Samira, Tom, good to see you again, man. I don't expect you to be following Andrew's content. Not sure, maybe I'm wrong, but I'd love your thoughts on this news and what Patrick mentioned.
Well, you know, I'll confess, I didn't know much about Andrew Tate till he came back into the news with his reemergence on some of these social media platforms, as your other guests have discussed. And I didn't follow him widely, closely even after that, but I did recognize that he was on the list of individuals the left expected everyone to denounce. And as you might imagine, I'm not into denouncing folks because the left tells us to denounce folks. And, we can all agree or disagree with individual statements he's made or approaches he has. But, my half joke is that, I don't agree with everything I say all the time. That's the reality of it. We're not expected to defend everything everyone does or says. But there's a big difference between that and targeting someone improperly because of what they say. And, my concern is, even if he had been arrested here in the United States on charges, I would just caution everyone that given the way the Justice Department and the FBI have been irredeemably compromised in this country and can't be trusted to conduct any political or investigations or prosecutions of anyone politically sensitive, obviously it follows, to me at least, similarly in countries like Romania that, where the U.S. Embassy is a big kid on the block, can be similarly trusted. So, the challenge we have for folks who want to have the rule of law enforced is that sometimes people like Andrew Tate, and I'm not saying he's guilty or innocent because I don't know enough about even the case as it's being brought here or investigated, is that we just can't trust the system to adjudicate this. And, that's why there's urgency, certainly on the American side, and I'm not naive as to fixing it in Romania, to ensure that we have a justice system that can be trusted to pursue or adjudicate cases like this. And, my view is if we can't trust the American justice system to investigate politically sensitive subjects, why would we expect a country like Romania to do that? So, as your prior guest was noting, he may be guilty. He may have done something wrong. And the question is, can that guilt be, can that decision as to whether he's guilty or innocent be entrusted to the Romanian government or the government who ultimately pursues any charges against him? And, given what's going on in the United States, I'd say no.
I want to go to Alex. Alex, did you drop out? Where are you, Alex? Damn it, I'll have to invite her again. But we do have Kim on stage. Kim, how are you? I'm trying to bring up one of Andrew's friends. She was just
very
up on
good.
stage.
Thank you. I've been listening for a while, and Andrew is also someone who follows me and who I've been in touch with over DMs. I found his career quite fascinating, so I've been spending a bit of time looking into him. But I think what people need to understand is that Andrew Tate is the product, right? He is marketing himself, and he's nowhere near as rich as he claims, and probably his success story is not as clean as he would like it to be. He started with basically building a casino in Romania that was all electronic. It's like slot machines and stuff like this. It went quite well, and I think he expanded to something like 10 of those casinos. And people need to understand, those people who go there and lose money, I don't think it's a moral business. It's ripping people off who have gambling addictions and things like that. Then his other business with cam girls and OnlyFans, it's also considered a bit shady. So when you look at the empire that he has built, the newest product is him basically creating this university, teaching people how to make money and how to use the tools that are available online to become successful. And in order to sell that, he needs to present himself as, a super successful, self-made young entrepreneur. And he does that in a way that I think is quite clever. He charters a jet and people are thinking it's his jet. He charters a yacht and people are thinking it's his yacht. Probably a lot of his cars are leased and it looks like it's all his cars. So, he's creating with relatively little money an image of someone who's like a half billionaire, who's made it, who has escaped the matrix, and now he can teach you how to do it. But when you actually look at his homes, you look at his lifestyle, for anyone who's lived the multi-$100 million lifestyle, it's not really the lifestyle he's living, right? So that he's now in these problems in Romania, I think possibly has two reasons. Number one, he got too big too fast, because in the industry he's in Romania, it's all organized crime, right? You don't run casinos without having some partnership in organized crime and paying off the right people. Otherwise, you just wouldn't exist in that market. So, those people would have looked at his recent rise and him claiming to have hundreds of millions made with his online businesses. There will be a lot of jealousy there. Those guys that are running organized crime in Romania, they will look at him as someone, who's come up because of him, and maybe he didn't give them what they felt they deserved, right? The other thing is, he has been attacking the establishment quite a bit. He's a very eloquent guy, very good speaker, very quick on his feet. I think in terms of marketing, he's one of the smartest guys out there. But he does make controversial statements, and he needs to do that because he needs to get more people interested in him, more followers. So he does go to extremes. He doesn't care about moral boundaries, political correctness. So he does step on a lot of toes. But the things he says often make perfect sense, and he says them with an ease that most people have forgotten to talk about because they're too scared to say the things he's saying, right? So I think what happened to him recently is just his success got too big in the eyes of, organized crime in Romania, and probably also the authorities in Romania because they see him as someone who may be evading taxes. Maybe they use this as a reason to get access to all of his devices, his financials, his bank records, to see, how can we extract some money from him? Because if this guy claims to have 500 million and he's only paid, let's say, 1.2 million in taxes in Romania, it's a real incentive to say, let's have a closer look at this guy, and at the same time take someone down who's just unpopular with the establishment. So I think in a nutshell, that sums it up. I don't know if he's guilty of anything. I find it always very suspicious when there are cameras there on the raid. When he's being moved into the car, you see at least 4 or 5 camera teams right there. It's a very public, orchestrated event. The fact that there's a terrorism group looking into him, organized crime and terrorism, makes the whole thing just taste a bit, obviously inflated. And we have to see if he has actually done the things that are sifting through now, coming out. That he manipulated women to come and work in his cam business, and that there was some kind of illegitimate activity involved. I mean, he is charged with an organized crime charge, or will be charged with an organized crime charge. These are the allegations right now. So they're very serious. I think it's really going to hurt his reputation. I don't think anyone who is a self-made man who has made money with legitimate businesses and has grown to a certain size will take him seriously anyway at this point, even before these charges happened. But now that they happened, I think it's really going to cut him down for a while, and he will have to deal with the aftermath of these problems, and we'll have to see how he gets himself out of that.
I do want to go as well. Kim, thanks a lot for sharing this, and I know Grant is on stage. Aurelius and Samira as well, thank you for accepting our invite. Aurelius, you were the editor at Andrew. Nick, I'll let you do the introductions quickly because I know you verified his identity.
Sure. Aurelius he dealt with a lot of content for Andrew Tate. He's part of the marketing team over there, and he's seen a lot of sides of him, both extremes and his softer side. And I think he'll be able to give a really interesting take on Andrew Tate on a more personal level. So Aurelius, take it away.
Thank you for letting me speak. So to begin, I have never met Tate personally. I do work on his marketing team for pushing his products. Now, as I have a complete access to every single catalog in regards to his entirety of his content, such as his vlogs, his interviews, some of the spicy content. I've also taken some of his programs, such as which somebody discussed earlier, which is body language, and more of the older content before and around the time of the War Room. I also know some things of the War Room, but I'm not a part of the War Room. And if I was, there's certain things that cannot be discussed because it's enclosed under an NDA. So to begin.
Okay, I would. The NDA is lastly concerns, but I have a question for you before you kick it off, man. To kind of give you a bit of direction. So having access to all the content, that means you're able to see content that is not published. Anything you can share?
Yes. So
anything that's worth noting that is not a side of Tate that we haven't seen, or some content they're like, hey, holy shit, what the fuck did I just see?
Basically, what I can do is to clarify really his marketing strategy and what you see, and it's somewhat that Pat Davidley touched on a little bit earlier, which was he uses a lot of marketing techniques as well as business techniques that someone that is actually also very controversial in the world and is a billionaire or seen to be billionaire is actually Dan Pena. And I've taken some of his courses as well. And they are very similar in the way they attack the internet, as well as how they approach basically their beliefs and how they talk about the things they believe in. Now,
understood.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Anything to share? Any insight to share beyond what we know regarding the allegations made against Tate? You haven't met Tate personally. You've had access to his content. Is there any insight you can share that we don't know? If not, that's fine as well, man.
Yes, I can actually clarify on something in regards to his OnlyFans program. So I took part of his OnlyFans program, and he was talking about how to run an OnlyFans and things like that. Not once has he ever explicitly spoke about being able to take advantage of a woman if it's not consensual and a part of basically having the woman's consent of going into the OnlyFans business. Not once has he said to use physical violence, to use manipulation such as verbal manipulation, making them feel bad, making them feel lesser or anything of such. It has always been consensual. It has always been a business tactic, as like basically trying to take lead in the business, not trying to be cut out as the man per se, etc. It has never been ever of all his content exploiting a woman, especially an underage woman, trafficking a woman, or anything of such.
Most of
That's the
his
main thing that you could get from that.
most of his content to do with like OnlyFans, like marketing and stuff like that, is mainly to do with like how to actually market the woman itself. So like making sure that their Twitter profiles optimized, making sure that they've got a Reddit, making sure that they've got multiple channels where they can essentially get guys in. That's essentially what a lot of like OnlyFans marketing courses go for. It's not to do with like he never once mentions anything to do with like as what was mentioned, like how to like get girls in, how to groom them. He never once mentions anything like that. It's mainly targeted on how to actually market them.
Got it, man. I want to go quickly to Amira. Amira, are you there? Samira.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I apologize, it was disconnected earlier, but I'll keep it very short and sweet. Now, there are certain things that we have to keep in mind. One, we know that the liberal establishment, they're after him. And I remember reading reports that these allegations, these charges regarding human trafficking were specifically pursued by the State Department and the US Embassy in Bucharest I remember reading it back in August. Now, if we keep all of those factors in mind, I think that we should wait for at least to have confirmation as to what he's being charged with, or even like what he's being detained for. Now, I find the media reaction very interesting because everyone jumped to the most extreme conclusion and determined without any sort of evidence that it was indeed these, human trafficking allegations that he was arrested, detained for, right? And I think it's important to note that it's not just his cultural positions, positions on the culture war that the liberal establishment is threatened by, but his positions on geopolitics. For example, the Russia-Ukraine war, the Taliban, China, DPRK, etc. It's a combination of those things that make him a threat. So when we keep all of these things in mind, I think that it's important to do before. That's all I have to say.
I appreciate
Hey,
it.
Samira.
And
Hi.
Go ahead, dude.
How's it going, Ian?
Good. Yeah, nice to finally talk to you.
Yes, finally. But thank you so much for the invite. I really appreciate it.
For sure.
There's been a lot of people supporting him on the panel.
Yeah.
Like I do want to, just to balance it out. Thanks a lot, Samira. I do want to balance it out. The allegations being made are pretty serious, and as every speaker said, just for the audience to know, as every speaker said, and Samira also mentioned, Kim mentioned, and Patrick earlier, we don't know if these allegations are true or not, and we're mentioning other things to keep in mind. Eventually, we'll hopefully get the facts. But we don't know what we don't know, and if the allegations are true, then obviously that's pretty dark, and obviously he'll be in jail for a long time.
But also to clarify, I mean, those allegations have been released. I mean, they're not just media allegation at this point. I mean, the media did jump to that right away. That is true. But at this point, those are also official from the Romanian.
Exactly. And that's a very important point. These are official.
There's no charges, right? I mean, just to clarify.
Official charges, by the authorities.
Yeah, they've not been laid on him. Like they're detaining him, investigating, but they didn't actually charge him yet. So that's interesting. Just thought I'd point that out.
Tom? And Grant, feel free to jump in anytime, Grant. Go ahead.
But I think Kim's analysis. I think everyone should carefully consider. And I think it's kind of a good global approach here. But if if Tate and his associates were involved in producing pornography in Romania, it's extremely unlikely that organized crime wasn't involved. It's also extremely unlikely that underage individuals weren't involved. I mean, it's just the nature of the business. It's an ugly business. And if you're in it, producing it, it's likely you're engaged in that type of activity. And so that's if there's something there, that to me is a major issue. And on the casino side, I think Ken's point is well taken as well, that it's unlikely any of those activities were clean, or if they were clean, he's obviously being targeted by those who are competitors. But the challenge is for the Romanian government and the U.S. government that clearly was involved in at least initially targeting him is, can you separate the allegations that are out there that Mario is doing well to remind us are really quite serious, if true, from his political positions and such. And my concern is that you can't. And that's why the rule of law is so undermined by the politicization of the agencies here in the United States. And I don't need to lecture anyone in Europe, let alone Eastern Europe, about how it's undermined there, because you get in situations where there could be serious crimes at issue, but you can't trust law enforcement to prosecute them fairly. And that's the challenge here. And it obviously, when you have the rule of law undermined, it leads to two results. The innocent are targeted and the guilty are targeted, and there's miscarriages of justice for both categories of folks that undermine civil liberties and the public safety.
Grant?
Yeah, well, hey, guys, thanks for having me up here. And when I heard Kim talking, I was like, oh, wow, he's describing part of my business, because we do a lot of educational products. We have Cardone University. I do have a plane. It is used in videos and the cars and all that. I just want to make some clarity here. I own my planes. I don't charter them. I don't own a yacht. I own my cars. I don't lease them. But I know that this is a tactic online that is used, to create a persona for pennies. There's a big difference between buying a Gulfstream and chartering something that looks like one. And you can produce a lot of video content in 2 or 3 hours around one that makes people, a young kid, think that you own it. So that's one thing. The other thing I heard him say on Piers Morgan, I had invited him 3 days ago to. I'm trying to reach out to him to get him on Twitter Spaces. He had reached out to me before that and wanted to do something together. And my kids ran into some of his material. And my 13-year-old daughter, and she's like, leave that man alone. If you ever do anything with him, I will not have anything to do with you. They're just terrified of him. They think he's a terrible man. And I'm not saying he is. He is, by the way. I just want to be clear. And but I heard him on Piers Morgan saying he was worth $1 billion. And I was like, I mean, I know what it takes to get to those levels. You don't do it selling courses to individuals. It is absolutely... it's not real. It's just not. You have to have assets to create that kind of wealth, or you have to sell tens of millions of products. And I just don't see, when he told Pierce, he's like, yeah, I'm a billionaire, but in dollars, not in pounds. I was like, nah, that's not real to me, with no assets and selling an online course to individuals. So, and I don't know that to be true either. Who knows? Maybe he's got $1 billion put away somewhere, but I don't believe he has that. And on the women thing, I have no clue. When I heard Kim, when I heard you describing him, I'm like, wow, dude, what if somebody pinned some charges against me and the FBI came and got me and was throwing me in a car? You guys would be having a room about me selling courses to people. And we've sold, this year we'll do about almost $150 million in educational courses online. About 40% of that is to companies, large companies, on 3-year contracts. That's how our Cardone University started. It started as an educational product for companies that wanted to increase their revenue. And then social media came along and it got opened up to individuals. And big
big events, etc. So, but I know the space is full. This educational online space is full of charlatans. And
one quick question, Grant,
yeah,
just on your Cardone University. So there's a lot of people that obviously try and sell their businesses. Do you think that Cardone University or Hustlers University is a sellable asset?
I don't. You do. Yeah, I think somebody could buy my Cardone University in the future because it's corporate content. I'm not teaching. I don't know that he can. I don't think any sponsor, any major corporation or a BlackRock or, those are my targets, right? So, I want somebody with tremendous money to fund something like that. And I don't see how he would ever get that funded.
I do want to go to Adam as well, if you don't mind, Grant. Adam, you told us that you've worked with some OF agencies, and you can give us a bit of insight on that side of the business that Tate was involved in.
Yeah, so I come from the digital marketing space, and so I know a couple people, and I've been in some Discord groups with a couple of guys who own OnlyFans agencies, OnlyFans, and like who was it? It was
My question is, so I know how they work, and I think we talked about it earlier. Just for the audience, like OnlyFans agencies, essentially what they do is they go to a girl, they take a cut out of the revenue she makes, 30, 50%, whatever, and they pocket that and they help market her and get her more, and do customer service for her. It even goes a bit further. Because I had, all of crypto, when crypto collapsed, everyone started going to OnlyFans, and I started getting people DMing me, telling me about it. It just sounds stupid. Where they start acting, pretending to be girl and chatting with people that are, horny men talking to other men, pretending to be the girl. So I get how they work, but my question to you is there a dark side to all this that you know of? Because the allegations made against Andrew are pretty fucking serious, and I'll read them out in a bit, because I know a lot of people joined the last hour. But is there a dark side to that world that no one's talked about yet?
From what I see, from the guys I know, there isn't a dark side, but that's because it's a for-profit business, and there's a lot of profit to be made when you can market these girls, and if you can expand horizontally, and get a huge portfolio of girls, and just manage them, and then expand vertically from there. So, from what I see, I don't know if I can.
I have another question for you, and that's leading somewhere. From what I know, it's relatively easy to get girls to an agency at OnlyFans. Is that true? And the reason I ask you is because why does, and I'm not defending Andrew in any way because I have no idea and the allegations are very serious, but my question is why does Andrew need to do this? Grant Cardone was talking about his business model, and Andrew's getting a lot of reach. Like, he could create a lot of wealth without going down that path. Maybe he did it in the past, but he doesn't need to do it anymore.
Yeah, I don't know actually. I don't think he has done it recently. Because I think I read somewhere, and don't take my word for this, but I think they've been collecting evidence for 7 months, is what they claim. Can someone back me up on that?
Yeah, I'll read it. I'll read out the allegations here. So, investigation goes back to April. There's 5 search warrants, crimes of constituting an organized criminal group, human trafficking, and rape. 4 suspects, 2 British citizens and 2 Romanian citizens, with a view to, and obviously the 2 British citizens are Andrew and his brother Tristan. With a view to committing human trafficking in Romania, the United States, and Great Britain. That's the point we had earlier. When you have those bigger countries involved, then corruption, where Andrew could pay regulators and avoid jail time, is no longer possible, or at least no longer easy when the US and the UK are involved. Apparently, the claims are, and this is a formal press release, they groomed girls with the promise of a romantic relationship and marriage, and then they transported them and housed them in Lvov. Through physical violence and mental coercion, inclusion, intimidation, surveillance, control, and invoking alleged debts, they sexually exploited the girls and forced them to perform pornographic acts, which they then shared on social media for financial gain. So far, 6 victims have come forward. The 4 accused are being initially held for 24 hours. To make it clear, I'm not saying this is not true. I'm just saying, it's just for someone at that level with that much fame and attention, there's just so many ways to generate revenue that it just doesn't seem necessary. That, like, no matter what, whether he is capable of doing it, whether he's done it before,
Well,
it
yeah,
just
Mario,
doesn't click. Go ahead, Grant.
and like there's another video where he's talking about 6 passports. You know, guys, I'm never ever worried about, okay, the FBI is going to come grab me and I'm going to be stuck in America. Like, if you're not doing criminal activity, if you're not doing anything wrong, why promote even the concept that you need 6 passports to run around the planet? Now, maybe it's practical, I don't know, but I've just never thought that way. And when I see that, I'm like, dude, this guy must have there must be something, because why would you figure that angle out? Why would you prepare for that angle if you're not doing anything wrong?
And what do you think of some people sent me a video where he's talking about the establishment chasing him, and they're gonna cancel him, they're gonna catch him, I don't know.
I think it creates an illusion or something, right? Like
Yeah,
like a facade of danger. Like, I'm a dangerous person. They're
exactly.
afraid of me. So I've got 6 passports. I'm traveling around the world. They can't catch me, but I have to watch it for my security. I mean, it creates this mystique around him, and everybody loves that, right?
And it makes it sound like he's the only guy who's speaking the truth. But
Catherine, your mic is really hard to hear you. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, it's a
Do you wanna try
Wi-Fi thing again.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's wrong with the mic. But so Ian Grant, like that's one way is like create that whole image of like I'm a bad boy on the run fighting the big guys.
Yeah. And I think because when he got kicked off of Twitter, and then, or I guess he was kicked off all the platforms, and then they let him back on, his Twitter exploded. So I think that gave him a lot of fuel and encouragement. But some of this, like for me anyway, maybe it's my age, I'm 60 years old, came up in a different time. When you're telling kids, hey, I got 80 grand and we went and blew it on a Ferrari or whatever he bought, an $80,000 car, because that's what money's for. That's not a sellable product. If somebody asked about, is his business, is that revenue sellable to some company? I don't know what company would buy that. Who would buy that? And this will kill his fight, by the way. He was going to do a fight with Logan, which was probably going to be a $10 million payday. This will kill that potential of him and Logan fighting.
Do you think it will hurt I'm waiting for Bobby to come up on stage. He's spent a lot of time with Andrew and Tristan. So Bobby, I've just sent you through an invite to come up via DM. If it doesn't work, you can leave the space and then click on it. It should work.
Maybe we should get Jake Paul in here.
Jake Paul, I don't think he will, bro. Like there's that whole video of. I'll try. Let me give it a try. If anyone can DM it.
Yeah, worth a shot. Worth a shot.
You got to get it televised though. It won't be Jake. Jake won't be the issue. It'll be who's gonna broadcast it.
Hey, Mario, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Is my mic better?
Yeah,
slightly.
No, it's not better. Barely. Go ahead, give it a shot, Catherine.
No, what I was just saying is just that he's creating this idea that he's speaking all this truth that no one else is, but that's not true. There's lots of people, at least at this point, there's lots of people saying the same things that he is. So it is part of his brand identity ultimately, which is fine. That's a good, smart brand identity. It's clearly working, but I think Grant is correct on the money. Like, why have 7 passports? I don't think it's because he's being chased by the, whoever to get him because of his speech.
We don't even know if he actually has 7 passports. He's pretending to just create that whole image.
That's true. Well. That's true. That's also true.
Hey, Mario, can we get Fade on? He's known him for years.
Sorry?
Can we get Fade on? Fadde. He's a friend of mine, but he's known Andrew Tate for years.
Yeah, sure. I'll Fadde. I'll invite now. I've invited a few people that know him as well. They should be anyone that's been invited. Just check your DMs. If it doesn't work, you leave the space and then click on the link on your DMs. You come up as a speaker. You've got another person here. Human trafficking to bring girls doesn't make any sense business-wise. So this person runs an agency, and he says the following. And actually, it's a good point. Again, I don't want to seem like I'm defending. That was nice, Grant. To your daughter, proud of her. I'll just let you know your mic is unmuted, bro. So we got an account here. Human trafficking to bring girls doesn't make.
Sorry, man.
Oh, good man. Human trafficking to bring girls doesn't make any sense. Business-wise, I run 10 girls, know people running 100 plus models. Once you get the system set up, girls just spam your DMs trying to work with you. Exactly the point I was making earlier, that there's a lot of, because I know someone, probably the biggest guy in the OnlyFans space. I know him on a personal level, and he tells me, Mario, like, just my problem is not getting girls. And he's a very ethical guy. So he has a very ethical business. I'm not saying the business itself is ethical, but it doesn't, the allegations made against Andrew are not even close to this guy's business model. And he says the supply of girls, I know it sounds crazy, but like the amount of girls that want to work with me, there's more. I just can't handle them. So that's not the issue. So then the question is that why does Andrew need to? That's actually a very good point. Why does Andrew need to go through all these steps, imprisoning these girls, forcing them to work, when there's more than enough girls, and I've heard this from many people, that want to work and make money on OnlyFans and they want an agency or someone to help them? So it just doesn't add up. But the webcam industry 10 years ago, okay, but the webcam industry 10 years ago was entirely different, and Romania was a very popular hub for webcam studios. And I know that because once I went to Romania, I rented a big suite, and I went there and the bed looked very weird, and I had my team with me. They're like, Mario, you know why the bed looks weird? I'm like, why? He's like, hey, that's a very common bed for Airbnbs that are for the people filming for the adult industry. So there's actually a lot of Airbnbs designed for that. I didn't know that. I ended up in one of those rooms for a few days. Same as Colombia, and some of
You
those
film any
studios ran
OnlyFans
in.
videos, Mario?
Say that again, man.
Did you film any OnlyFans videos, Mario?
Of
On
course
that
I did. How
bed?
do you think? How do you think I made my money, man? Like, um, and same as Colombia, and some of those studios ran in very shady, unethical systems. So there is a possibility. I'm glad you were very balanced. I'm actually going to invite you, a Caribbean Menace. There's a very balanced argument that he made. It's like there is more than enough girls that want to work on OnlyFans that want an agency to help them. You don't need to do what the allegations are against Andrew that he's doing, but at the same time, at least 10 years ago, it was very shady, which kind of makes the point that maybe he did that in the past. He's not doing it now. It's hard to know. Maybe these allegations are from things he did prior to OnlyFans, when there weren't as many girls that wanted to be in that business. Who knows? Fade, good to hear you. Good to have you, man.
Mario, just to counter that, I think you made a good point, but at the same time, there is so much human trafficking going on. So while there are certainly women who volunteer to do this, I mean, there is so much human trafficking and sex trafficking. So it doesn't.
I would say, I don't know about that. That's something I don't know much about. If it's related in general, he's doing is human trafficking in general, unrelated to OnlyFans. That's a discussion I probably better for another panelist to have, and that's a whole different story. But the point I was making is that to traffic women and force them to work at OnlyFans or webcam, that's very odd, because there's a lot of girls that want to do it now, and the whole
Yeah,
culture
you can see
behind it kind of
publicly.
changed.
They are tweeting at him saying, "I'll work for you. I'll do all these things." I mean,
Yeah, that's
that's
fair.
evident for
Yeah,
anyone to see.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the idea that he had to force somebody to do it kind of doesn't add up.
And that's kind of what I wanted to. And first of all, Mario, thank you for bringing me on. Knowing Andrew and Tristan for at least like 4 or 5 years at this point. Um, and I work in the sports and music industry out here in America. So a lot of my clients, like to run around in those kinds of scenes and things like that. With that being said, it being around him and his brother and his entourage, he does run around with a fairly detailed security team. At any point there's at least 5 to 10 rather muscular, rather armed security personnel around him at all times. Whether we're in Paris or Dubai or Qatar or French Riviera, Mykonos, it doesn't matter. With that being said, the allegations, being around him, seeing the amount of girls that come around him and his family and his brothers and things like that, and that are literally just throwing themselves at him, I find it hard to believe, just because I've, seen it countless times, right? What I think more likely could potentially happen is a girl just wasn't happy with the cut that she was getting from potential OnlyFans or whatever deal that they had made from the agency or things like that. Could it have been something years ago or decades ago, I don't know, right? But at least from what I've taken in and what I've seen, and knowing a lot of the same girls that are literally throwing themselves at the guy, it's really hard for me to fathom at this point.
And I just want to add in here, like what I was saying earlier about that girl that like threw up in his house and she refused to pay for it. It was exactly the same deal, right? Like, I mean, she went out and said a bunch of shit that she later took back